لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا اللهم بما علمتنا وزدنا اللهم علما وعملا إنك ولي ذلك والقادر عليه. أما بعد، فهذا درسنا في شرح بلوغ المرام الحافظ ابن حجر رحمه الله وغفر الله لنا وله ولسائر المسلمين. وما زلنا في كتاب الطهارة في أواخر الكتاب في باب الغسل وحكم الجنوب، باب الغسل وحكم الجنوب. And so we're continuing reviewing the book of Tahara, of purification, from the famous book Bulugh al-Maram from Hafiz ibn Hajar, and we are towards the end of the chapter regarding the ghusl, or the bathing, for the one who has to purify himself from major impurity. If he has a major impurity, his junub, then he has to take a bath before he can, or do what? Before he can pray. And so we have few hadith left in this chapter, and inshallah once we finish this we'll take a break for Ramadan from this book, and we'll probably do some advices for how to greet Ramadan if we have time next week, inshallah, because that'll be the final week of classes before the Ramadan. So how to basically a quick course in how to greet Ramadan and how to take benefit from it, the most benefit, inshallah, if Allah makes us live to that. So this, the junub, we said, who has to take a bath? The one who has major impurity. إما بإنزال المني بشهوة أو بجماع أو بالجماع وإن لم ينزل. That either he has, if he's married, he has relation with his wife, okay, even if he does not have release of semen, then he has to take a bath. Or if it's out of wet dream or something, okay, or if he has release from desire of even if it's not a relation with the wife, okay, like a wet dream. So these are the cases, and we left off about the hadith al-ashir بعد المئة, hadith 110, عن علي رضي الله عنه قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرئنا القرآن ما لم يكن جنبا. هذا الحديث ضعفه الشيخ الألباني رحمه الله. This next hadith, number 110, is a weak hadith. So we'll just mention it quickly. It's reported from Ali radiallahu anhu that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to teach us the Quran except when he was in junub. If he was in a state of major impurity, then he would not teach us the Quran. This is the hadith wording, but it's a weak hadith. So there's no proof, according to many scholars, that the one who is in this condition, that he cannot recite the Quran, okay, from memory, or make dhikr. Touching is the difference of opinion of touching, and the difference of opinion is better to avoid, because some scholars say you can't to touch the Quran, but because it's easy, a person can just take a bath, right? To remove himself, al-khuruj min al-khilaf, to take himself out of the difference of opinion, that's better. Because if he takes a bath before he touches the Quran, no one's going to blame him. And no one's going to blame him. But if he decides to take the other opinion and goes ahead and touches the Quran without taking a bath, then some scholars will say it's not allowed. Other scholars would say it's allowed. So to avoid that difference and that situation, just take a bath. It's not that hard. The difficulty comes for the al-ha'id, the menstruating woman. You see, this is the one that she can't just take a bath, right? Al-ha'id على يعني حكمها حكم الجنوب، لأنها على الحدث الأكبر. The menstruating woman is likewise in a major impurity, although it's not from relation, but the same ruling. She can't pray, right? Just like the one who had relation with the wife, he can't pray. The woman also who's in the menstruating period, during her period, 7 days or whatever, she can't pray. So some scholars say she also cannot touch the Quran. But in this case, there's difference of opinion, and you could lean more towards permission for her to touch, right? Why? Because she can't just take a bath, you know. She has to wait 7 days, 10 days. Okay, so if one takes the safer route, then yeah, I mean, you would say don't touch it until you take a bath or with gloves on and touch the Quran. Other scholars say because there's a hadith that says al-hayda laysa biyadik. The Aisha radiallahu anha, the hadith came, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked her, said ناولني هذا هذه الخرقة وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم في المسجد وهي في البيت، فقال لها ناولنيه، فقالت يا رسول الله أنا حائض، فقال لها الحيض ليس بيدك. So what the proof, the scholars that say the menstruating woman can enter the masjid, for example, for a class or something, or this is for the masjid, that's different. But it's related, the same ruling. The same scholars, they say you can't enter the masjid, they say you can't touch the Quran, the Mus'haf, if you're a menstruating woman, if she's menstruating. So same other scholars say, no, she can touch the Mus'haf and she can enter the masjid. Okay? Why? Because there's a hadith, Prophet ﷺ told Aisha, when he was in the masjid, hand me something, some cloth or something. And she was outside the masjid. And she said, oh Rasulullah, I'm in the condition of menses. He said, the menses is not in your hand. So it's not like, meaning, according to one understanding, it's not like your hand is filthy, and you go into the masjid, it's not filth. It's in one place of her body, right? That place, but that's covered, right? It's not going to spoil anything in the masjid because it's guarded, it's safeguarded, or with some pad or something. So in this case, it's not like someone is taking physical filth and spreading it into the masjid. This would not be allowed. So that's why the scholars say the menstruating woman can come into the masjid, according to this opinion, and she can also touch the Mus'haf. Okay? The strongest proof, just so you know why why do some scholars say no, if you're in junub or menstruating, you can't touch the Mus'haf. They say, the hadith we took before, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يمس القرآن إلا طاهر. The hadith, Prophet ﷺ said, no one should touch the Quran, the Mus'haf, except if he's pure. But we mentioned last time, what is the meaning of tahir here? Some scholars say it means a believer, because al-mu'min la yanjus. Another hadith, if you combine the proofs, the Prophet ﷺ said, al-mu'min la yanjus. The believer is never impure. Okay? Meaning physically. Or spiritually. He's never spiritually impure because he has faith. Who is the one who's spiritually filthy? The kafir, the disbeliever, because he's carrying shirk and disbelief. So he is the one who cannot touch the Quran. He is the one. The meaning of the hadith, no one should touch it except the pure one, meaning not kafir. But a believer, سواء كان الحدث أكبر وليس به حدث فله أن يمس القرآن. But the believer, even if he is not upon wudu or not upon ghusl, he's still pure. He's still tahir. You see, spiritually tahir. So anyway, that's a big difference opinion amongst the scholars. So if a person wants to say, I'd rather be safe, I'd rather not go into difference opinion, then he says, whether I'm in the janaba, or the woman is in menses, then don't touch the Quran, except with gloves on, and so on. So that's the as far as with the tongue though, that's much easier, without touching. That's easy because we have other hadith we took before. كان صلى الله عليه وسلم يذكر الله على كل أحيانه وكل أحواله. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, he used to remember Allah with his tongue on all conditions, or with his heart, in any condition. What is included in any condition? Janaba. And also, so the person in janaba can remember Allah with his tongue or with his heart, no problem. Okay, so the next hadith. الحديث التالي، الحديث 11 بعد 100، عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إذا أتى أحدكم أهله ثم أراد أن يعود فليتوضأ بينهما وضوءا. رواه مسلم وزاد الحاكم فإنه أنشط للعود. So this is for the married, ruling for the married man, but it's good to know for a person who will get married later that these are certain is a recommendation. When the Prophet ﷺ said, when one of you goes to his wife and then he wants to go back a second time in the same night, for example, then let him make a wudu between the two times. Recommended to make the wudu. Another hadith, it says, because that would give him more energy. Okay, would have him more, power. Okay, to be able to return a second time. Okay, so this is the hadith. So the scholars explained it's not obligation, but it's a recommendation, because this will make, because this is the right of the wife. The right of the wife is that he provides for her and she provides for him in all senses, including the relations. So this is the hadith, and some scholars say it's better also, along with that, between the two times, to wash his private part. Okay, make wudu and wash the private part and make wudu. Okay. So this is something, this is something from the wahi. This is something from revelation. But just like all things, we may understand the wisdom or the physiology, you could say, the how the body works, and not, or we may not understand. But this, Allah will put blessing in a person, in his life, and all of his activities if he follows this recommendation.
Oh, so my question was, this wudu would be like for that strict purpose, right? It wouldn't he would still be in a state of impurity.
Yes, he would still be, good question, he would still be in a state of janaba, and he can't pray. But it would have this benefit for him in his life, in his dunya, in this matter. Also, it would be a worship. It's still a worship that he gets, a benefit in his religion, because he followed the advice, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But he can't pray until he takes the bath. Yeah. So from the benefit of this hadith, من فوائد هذا الحديث أن الشريعة الإسلامية شاملة كاملة، يعني تشمل ما يتعلق بالأبدان وما يتعلق بالأديان. يعني ما فيه في الشريعة المصلحة للأديان كما هناك مصلحة للأبدان. So the benefit we understand from this hadith generally is that the legislation, the Quran with Sunnah, it is comprehensive. It is all inclusive. It's complete. Allah said, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. Allah said, this day I've completed, الْيَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ. I've completed your religion for you. And I've perfected my favor upon you. And I've chosen for you al-Islam as a religion. So this Islam is complete, not just for our worship and for the next life and for nearness to Allah, but also for our bodies. So many benefits we see. Fasting, for example, will come to. There are so many benefits from the fasting for our bodies, just from a physical health aspect. Even so many research papers and studies about what they call intermittent fasting. A person fasts for 12 hours or so on a day, and kuffar, حتى الكفار, they're going, and it's a very hot topic amongst the disbelievers. We say Islam sabaqakum ilayhi. Islam already knew this way before you discovered it, because this is from Allah. Okay, and Allah revealed that which is good for us physically and spiritually. And so in this case, this shows the benefit for our bodies if we follow this advice to make the wudu between the relation with the spouse. And there's many such narrations that indicate a physical benefit to our worship. This is not the only hadith. There's many such hadith. For example, the first in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال على لسان نوح عليه السلام. What did Nuh alayhi salam and other prophets, but Nuh alayhi salam, what did he say to his people? فقلت استغفروا ربكم إنه كان غفارا. هذه المصلحة الدينية هذه المصلحة الدينية يرسل السماء عليكم مدرارا ويمددكم بأموال وبنين ويجعل لكم جنات ويجعل لكم أنهارا. هنا المصلحة الدنيوية. فيعني ذكر لهم ما يعني يعود عليهم بالنفع من حيث دنياهم إذا قاموا بالعبادة والاستغفار. So here, for example, Nuh alayhi salam, what did he say to his people? He said, "Oh my people, ask forgiveness from your Lord. Worship your Lord. Ask forgiveness for your sins. إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَّارًا. Indeed, He is the most pardoning and forgiving." This is what a benefit in their religion, and forgive their sins so that they are in a better condition in the next life, and benefits, in this life in their spirituality. Then he mentioned Allah will send the rain upon you, in plentiness, and He will give you plenty of wealth and children, and give you gardens and give you rivers. This is all what? Physical benefit in their worldly affairs. So he mentioned to them the physical, worldly benefit from their what? Istighfar, astaghfirullah. So this shows that this is a good thing. Why did he mention this? Because this will encourage them to come with this worship. And this is a good thing that people, they sometimes need an encouragement, that they will become more, strengthened and more resolved to do the worship when they see they'll get benefit in this life and the next life. Okay? And so this hadith we're taking now, فَإِنَّهُ أَنْشَطْ لِلْعَوْدِ, that if you do the wudu, then you'll be more powerful and more strong to go back to your spouse the second time. So this was mentioned as an encouragement, to do this worship. And لأن هذا تبعث على العزيمة, it makes a person more, resolved to do that worship. And likewise, also, many such narrations, they come with that effect. And so there's nothing wrong, but a person with his intention, though, always remember, when we have the intention, our intention should be first to worship Allah, to sincerely, that Allah will accept from us the worship, and we seek nearness to him in the next life. Okay, we seek nearness to him in the next life. That's the primary niyyah. Okay, so for example, fasting. A person cannot in his fasting say, I want to lose weight, I have diabetes, I have this high blood pressure, this. I need to take care of my health, so I'm going to fast from Ramadan because there are proven benefits for my health. And that's his intention. This will not be accepted from him until he makes his primary intention التقرب إلى الله والدار الآخرة ابتغاء يبتغي بذلك وجه الله. He seeks the face of Allah. Intention, ikhlas, to seek nearness to Allah and the Jannah. That's his primary intention. But along the way, he gets encouraged and he feels that I'm going to also benefit in this life because I have to live this life. I have to finish, I have to go in this path that I'm on. And as long as, I'm here, Allah is promising me benefits. That's just, nur ala nur. This is like light upon light. Okay? So, therefore Allah said, من كان يريد ثواب الدنيا فإن الله ثواب الدنيا والآخرة وكان الله سميعا بصيرا. Allah said, whoever wants the reward of this life, meaning these benefits we're talking about, children, good health, and so on. فإن الله ثواب الدنيا والآخرة. Then with Allah is the reward of this life and the next. What does that mean? What I just said, that my intention is, what is with Allah? To seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He will give me the reward of this life and the next. It just comes automatically without making it the primary goal. And my whole revolving is just, I want this benefit in this life. It's going to come. Shi'na am abayna, whether we like it or not. As long as we seek Allah's pleasure, Allah will give us. Because huwa ar-Rahman, huwa al-Jawad. Allah is the most generous, huwa al-Kareem. He'll give more and more than we deserve. So that's that benefits of this hadith. So that's regarding if a person is, upon junub and he wants to go back a second time to his wife, then for him is to make wudu in that condition. Any question on that hadith? Then we'll go to the next one. Hadith الثاني عشر بعد المئة 112 وللأربعة عن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ينام وهو جنب من غير أن يمس ماء. This hadith is weak. That says Aisha said the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم used to become junub and he would go to sleep without taking a shower or making wudu. Okay, this is different. Now, if a person wants to sleep after he's had relation, he wants to go to sleep for the night. Now, should he take a wudu? He doesn't have to take a shower. We know that he can take a shower in the morning. But should he take a wudu before he goes to sleep? This is the correct. He should take a wudu. This is recommended. And this was the practice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كما جاء في البخاري. The hadith is in Bukhari. Not this hadith, but authentic one now. The authentic hadith عن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا أراد أن ينام وهو جنب غسل فرجه وتوضأ للصلاة. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in a state of janaba and he wanted to go to sleep, then he would wash his private part and then make the wudu. Okay, so we're in the chapter of the Hukm al-Junub. What should a person do? Recommended, not obligatory. It's not wajib, based upon other text or other understanding, but it's a recommendation. It's a recommendation. And this will obviously, why? Because he wants to sleep in a state of يخفف جنابته من باب تخفيف الجنابة. He's in a state of impurity, and the junub person, it's not a condition he wants to be in, remain, because the angels will not approach him, and he's not going to be in if he dies in that condition, he dies on janaba, So he wants to lighten that condition that upon him. So he takes a wudu. A wudu will benefit him. It doesn't let him pray, right? First hadith we said it benefits him to be more strong to go back to his wife. Additional benefit, if he wants to sleep, is that he will be lightened in his filthy condition, spiritual filth, and that's a good thing because in the sleep, al-badan تفارقه النفس. Well, because in the sleep, as we know, the angel, the soul, they leave the body, they roam, okay, and ينبغي أن يكون على طهارة, and in this condition, he should be in a pure, at least a lightened purity, or somewhat medium purity. Even if he doesn't take a bath, if he makes wudu, he's in a pure condition when he's in the sleep, and that is a benefit for him. Yeah. So that's so that what he should do if he's in the janaba, what should he do? And he wants to go to sleep, he should wash his private parts and make the wudu. That's what this hadith shows us. And then he can go to sleep upon a lightened impurity. Also, another hadith in the Abi Dawood, this was from Abu Dawood radiallahu anhu, كان إذا أراد أن ينام وهو جنب توضأ وإذا أراد أن يأكل غسل يديه. Additional benefit connected, if he's in janaba and he wants to sleep, make wudu, that we took. And if he wants to eat, then wash his hands. Wants to eat, then wash his hands. Wants to eat when? The context tells us when he's in janaba. Okay, we put the first hadith to understand the last part of the hadith. The first part of the hadith is he's in janaba. So the hadith says, and if he wants to eat, then let him wash his hands. But some scholars, they understood this out of context, or some people, they understood it mean anytime you want to eat, day or night, then you should wash your hands. But the hadith didn't say that. It didn't say that. So it's a custom, it's a practice in many cultures, to wash the hands. Nothing wrong with it. But there's no hadith, okay, that indicates that meaning, that every time we come to eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner, then we should wash our hands. It's not such. Because the hadith says, when you're in janaba, and when you're in janaba, obviously your hands are roaming. Here, maybe here and there, may have something which is mustaqdar, something which is filthy from that event. So you wash your hands, but not any old time. Okay, so this is a benefit. So when should we wash our hands? When we eat or drink? If we have something filthy on our hands, right? If we were coming from work, working with something, dirty or something, greasy, wash your hands before you eat or drink. That's fine, but it should not be taken as if it's sunnah to wash my hands before I eat or drink. That's according to Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah. There's no hadith to indicate that. So when it's sunnah, we get reward for washing our hands when we're in janaba and we don't want to take a bath right now. We should wash our hands before eating or drinking. Okay, if we're in major impurity. Also, we took before, when a person, when he wakes up from sleep, wakes up in the morning, before he puts his hand in any vessel, he should wash his hands. Same wisdom, because his hand may be here and there in the night, so he should wash his hands. So those are the two conditions. It's a sunnah or wajib to wash your hands when waking up from sleep or after relations. Okay, so that's that regarding, and there's another hadith that basically has the same meaning from Umar. It's in Bukhari and Muslim. استفتى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يا رسول الله أيرقد أحدنا وهو جنب يعني أينام أحدنا وهو جنب؟ قال نعم، إذا توضأ فليرقد. إذا توضأ فليرقد. There's another hadith that Umar radiallahu anh asked the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, should one of us go to sleep when he is in janaba? He said, yes, you can, uh, if he makes wudu. Yeah, make wudu, then sleep. So this again has the same meaning. This hadith from Umar, the first hadith from Aisha radiallahu anha. Okay, now next hadith, كيفية الغسل. Next hadith, how to make the ghusl. Okay, this is just a review. Yeah, this hadith جاء عن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا اغتسل من الجنابة يبدأ فيغسل يديه ثم يفرغ بيمينه على شماله فيغسل فرجه. So the steps of the ghusl. First the ghusl, there's sunnah way of ghusl, and there's the wajib, the least you can do. The least we can do, okay, is just and umma al-badan bil ma, that he just gets the water over his whole body. Okay, ma'an niyyah, he has to have niyyah for any worship, right? An intention. وَالنِّيَّةُ فِي الْقَلْبِ تَسْبُقُ الْعَمَلِ, before he goes in the shower. And then he gets the water, lets the water pour all over his body, but he also has to do the mouth and the nose. That's understood. That he has to do with his hand, mouth, and nose. But the rest he can just let the water just come over his whole body, head to toe. Then that counts as the ghusl, and now he can pray. Now he can pray. What's the sunnah? The sunnah is to take the following steps. أولا, first that he, and these steps are how they used to do it, from making the ghusl from a vessel, from a bucket, like, they didn't have the shower. So this is to understand. He would take his he would pour the water onto his hands, okay, and wash his hands, because his hands may have some filth. Yeah, so you don't put it directly into the bucket, because then you're going to use that water as you already made it filthy now. So first wash the hands. So this, alhamdulillah, all this, very detailed, everything to make us the most healthy spiritually and physically. So it's after that, then he pours with his right hand from the bucket onto his left hand. Okay, and then he washes his private parts with that left hand, because this is after he has janaba, with his wife, and the same applies to the wife. She would do the same thing. So إما أنه يفرغ على شماله وهي ملاصقة بفرجه، أو يفرغ على فرجه مباشرة فيغسل يعني فرجه بشماله. So either, basically, if it was with a bucket, right, you would pour to his left hand, and his left hand is close to his private parts, and he would proceed to wash his private parts, or he pours directly onto his private parts, and he cleans with his left hand. Either way, he's cleaning with his left hand, because as we said, the left hand is reserved for the filthy things, okay, like holding his private part when he's urinating. The hadith says, do not لا يمسكن أحدكم ذكره بيمينه وهو يبول. One should never, we took this hadith, take his private part with his right hand when he's urinating, because his right hand is going to go next to eat with this right hand, shake the hand with the right hand. It should be clean always. So here he's cleaning himself, right? First step is cleaning the private parts, okay, in the ghusl. Then ثم يتوضأ, and then he makes the steps of the wudu, like any old wudu, okay, mouth and nose, okay, the face, okay, the arms to the elbows, all the whole hand from the tips of the fingers to the elbows. Then he wipes his head and his ears, and then he washes his feet, like any wudu. ثم يأخذ الماء بيديه فيدخل أصابعه في أصول الشعر حتى إذا يعني رأى أنه أروى بشرته وأسبغ يعني إسباغا كاملا ثم حفن على رأسه 3 حفنات. Okay, so what does he do? Now after that, he takes both hands into the bucket, okay? Uh, or before that, after he cleans his private part, right, with his left hand, then he should wash his left hand, okay? Wash his left hand again. Some they used to at that time have little water, so to conserve the water, back a bucket with a little bit of water. They would he would sallallahu alaihi wasallam take his left hand, which he just cleaned his private part, and rub it on the wall to remove any filth that had come on his hand from his private part. Or he would hit the ground or some dirt, and that would clean his hand, and then he would wash that, because that process, along with the water, is faster to remove any filth that may be remaining on his hand. So once his hand is clean again, then he would take both hands and he would wet them, and he would go and rub into the roots of his hair, all through the roots of his hair to get to his skin, basically, the water. And then he would pour upon his, from the bucket, 3 pours, or you said two handfuls, 3 times on his head. Very detailed and very, in excessive, you could say, a very, complete washing of the head. This is different than wudu. Wudu is the light. The head is the least portion, just white. Why? Because that's wudu. The wudu is هو الوضوء مبني على التخفيف. The wudu in origin is a lightened event. The janaba is a big event, because he just went through a big event. When he goes with the wife, that's a big event, and his whole body has taken a share from the janaba. So likewise, his whole body deserves to be cleaned, and every hair. So he goes through every hair. Okay. So he's now poured the water on his head 3 times. ثم أفاض على سائر جسده, and then he pours on his right side, all the rest of his body, and then once on the left side, just once on the right side, once on the left side. The head we just said 3 times, pours 3 times, but the rest of the body one time, and then it says ثم غسل رجليه, and then he washed his feet. Why? Because he already washed his feet, right, in the wudu that preceded the head and the body. So this washing of the feet, the scholars explain, because at that time they would have dirt floor. So once you pour water on it, it's going to become mud. You're standing there, you're pouring water on yourself, now you're standing in mud. So you step out a little bit and wash your feet out of that muddy area or into your shoes. Wash your feet, put your sandals on. So, for example, that's the purpose of this washing of the feet. Yeah. So basically, if there's times when we have, cement, or we have, the well, you call it, the tub and the tiles, and so you don't need to do this. According to some scholars, this last washing the feet, because you already washed your feet. So this is like we said, if we were pouring from a bucket. Nowadays, just run the shower. Also, we should still limit the wastage of water. But for the sake of convenience, we run the shower, right? So the run the shower, in this case, we would start by, just go straight to washing the private part. Let the water run to the private part with your left hand, clean the private part, okay? Then you can wash your hands with the water or with soap, to get any filth off, okay? Then you go to what? The wudu, head, mouth, nose, face, head, arms, head, feet, and then let the water just run into your head and put your fingers into the roots, and then make sure it's 3 times comes on your head in addition, and then let the water run on the right side, front and back, left side, front and back, and done. That's it. So a very concise process. That's the ghusl. And as you said, that's the sunnah. Person wants to get the reward for sunnah, he does it this way. If he wants to do just the basic, then he just lets the water run on his body. And the proof for that, because that's not mentioned in this hadith, right? But there's another hadith. There's another hadith. Of course, there's the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "When kuntum junuban fattaharu." Allah said, and if you are in janaba, then purify yourself. And purify yourself is a general term, meaning the least that will satisfy purifying is just let the water run on the body without all the step by step process. And there's another hadith in Bukhari. في قصة الرجل الذي اعتزل القوم ولم يصلي معهم فسأله النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن ذلك فقال أصابتني جنابة ولا ماء فقال عليك بالصعيد فإنه يكفيك ثم حضر الماء فأعطاه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ماء فقال خذ هذا أفرغه على نفسك من الشاهد. This is a story in Bukhari, a man who didn't have any water. He was in janaba, okay? And he didn't pray with the jama'ah, with the group. And so after the Prophet ﷺ was done praying, he said, what happened? Why didn't you pray with us? He said, I was in janaba, and there was no water to take a bath. He said, it was enough for you to make tayammum. You know, the next chapter we're going to do is the tayammum, the dry ablution with the dirt and the like. Wipe the face and the hands. He said, that's all you had to do. So then the water came. Not there, before there was no water. Now, later on in the day, the water came. So now when a person has done dry ablution and the water is now present, he has to make the purification now, whether it be wudu or ghusl. Upon him was the ghusl, so he did the. So how did the point is the Prophet ﷺ said, "Khudh hada, take this water that just came and pour it on yourself." You see, he didn't tell him, "Oh no, you have to first do this and then wash and then wudu and then this and this." No, he didn't say all that. He said, "Just pour it on yourself." So this shows that this is the basic minimum that satisfies al-ghusl. Okay, so after the person makes this the ghusl, does he have to make another wudu? No, because the wudu, even if he just poured water on himself, he does it because his intention when he's pouring the water on himself, his intention, his niyyah was rafa al-hadath al-akbar wal-asghar. He had the intention, like we talked about last time, like the Jumu'ah. A person, before he starts the bath, he has the intention to remove the major impurity and the minor impurity, which means he has the intention for ghusl and wudu. Okay, so as long as he has the intention that I want to be able to pray, I want to remove the impurity, then even if he doesn't follow the steps in order of the face and then the hands and so on, it counts as the wudu. All right, and so as long as though he does the mouth and the nose. When you say pour water on the body, it should be understood with the intention, and along with that, water in the mouth and the nose, madad, istinshaq, and spit out. So,
are the requirements for the ghusl for the Friday prayer the same as the ghusl for janaba?
exactly, yes, that's a good question. The same, what we talked about last week of the Jumu'ah, how you do it, just the same way as with the janaba. Exactly the same. Step A to Z. No different. That's why some scholars say you can do one ghusl to satisfy both. If a person wakes up on Jumu'ah in a major impurity, he can take one bath for the impurity, and that counts for also the Jumu'ah. So he has three intentions then. Before he takes the bath on Friday morning, to erase from himself a major impurity, to have the ghusl for the Jumu'ah prayer, and number three, the wudu, minor purification. Other scholars say you should have to have two baths in this case. because قالوا الواجب لا يغني عن الواجب. They said wajib cannot take the place of a wajib. Like for example, a person missed, a prayer. Say he missed Dhuhr prayer. Can he say it's now Asr prayer? Say, can I make one prayer now and count for both? No, because they're two separate prayers. So that's why some scholars say, just to as a caveat, I said, what on one opinion last time, that one bath is enough for both ghusl janaba and ghusl jumu'ah. But other scholars say this is like that. It's like combining two wajib prayers in one prayer. So likewise, you can't combine two baths, wajib, in one bath. That's if they view the ghusl jumu'ah wajib. So wajib la yughni an wajib. You can't take one wajib and say it counts for another wajib. That's another opinion. So just so you know, that opinion is also there. So if that condition arises. And again, just a reminder, summarize, when it comes to washing the head and the sunnah ghusl, finger into the roots, hands, fingers into the roots, and then 3 times into the head. The three comes for that. But the body, washing the right and then the left, just 1 time. And where do you get right and left? It's not mentioned in the hadith. This hadith of Aisha is not mentioned right and left. We got that from another hadith we took before. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam كان يعجبه التيامن ويتيمن في شأنه كله في طهارته وترجله وتناوله. Why the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, or it was reported, that he used to always prefer to do the right first in all of his affairs, like the good things, like mentioned, putting on the shoes. Start with the right shoe, then the left. Combing the hair, the right part of his hair, then the left part. And the tahara, fi tuhurihi, and his purification, it mentioned in the same hadith, he used to do the right and then left. Like the wudu, similarly the ghusl. Pour the water on the right part of the body and then the left. So that's where we get that. And also there's another proof that we mentioned before, just to summarize, that hadith Atiyya حين كانت مع النساء تغسل إحدى بنات الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال لهن ابدأن بميامنها ومواضع الوضوء منها. When the Sahabiyat were washing one of the daughters of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the janazah, he told them, start with her right parts of the body and with the places of the wudu. Place of wudu, this is the way of the ghusl of the mayyit, taghsil al-mayyit, that same way. He's washed, same way, the dead. And the hadith mentions specifically, start with the right side of the body and then the left. So if the dead is washed that way, the living more so should be washed the same way, in the same way. So any questions on that part of the chapter? If not, then نكتفي بهذا القدر والله تعالى أعلى وأعلم. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. ونكمل هذا الباب في الدرس القادم إن كان في العمر بقية. And inshallah we'll stop there and complete this chapter next class. And then in the remaining part we'll take some aspects of Ramadan if we live to that. وجزاكم الله خيرا أجمعين.